everyone! So while I was researching for this speech, I casually typed into my computer common misconceptions of the dairy industry just to see what would pop up. And the number one result was a PETA article bashing the industry using extravagant words and sensationalizing inaccurate information to appeal to those with big hearts and untrained eyes. Now, milk is the very first thing we as humans consume from the moment we are born. Even after we no longer have a dependence for it, milk and dairy products remain a staple in the majority of our lives. And the biggest reasons I hear when people say they don't consume dairy products is either because they are lactose intolerant, which I understand, they have a distaste for dairy, which I also understand, or they have read about cruel and inhumane practices done within the industry and are scared to support evil farmers, which that I don't really understand. While I was in high school, I was a part of the FFA chapter, where I competed on the veterinary science team and raised livestock to show at the spring fair. I also took animal and veterinary science classes, job shadowed an artificial insemination technician, and of course I have worked on a dairy farm. All of these experiences have taught me everything I know about the dairy industry and the practices that are done within it. Today, I will be explaining to you the problem of misinformed consumers and the effect that it has, a solution for this problem, a visualization of the current condition, and what you can do as a consumer. The biggest problem is that a lot of misinformation is so widely shared with the general public about the dairy industry, it causes a lot of people to have a negative perspective about it. This negative shadow that's been put on the industry is causing farmers and their families to struggle to maintain their livelihoods. Now, according to Michael Netview at the Farm Bureau, during a 15-year study between the years 2003 to 2019, it was recorded that there was a 50% decrease in the amount of licensed dairy operations within the United States. This decrease was heavily influenced by consumers switching to non-dairy products due to the previous reasons. If this decrease continues, the U.S. economy will take a hit, and that is why it's important for you to understand that these practices aren't as bad as mainstream media portrays them to be. Now, one of the most common misbeliefs is that it is cruel to take the calf away from their mother. An article titled "Busting Milk Myths" by Marianne Buzet at Michigan State University, it said that it's actually a lot more beneficial for the calf to be removed than for the calf to stay with their mother. The article states that calves are born with almost no immune system, and in order to get their immune system, they have a very short window of time to drink this special milk called colostrum. Now, cows do produce colostrum on their own, but it's recommended that calves must get around 1 gallon of colostrum within the first 6 hours of their life. So by removing the calf from their mother, the farmer can make sure that the calf gets the correct amount of colostrum within the correct amount of time, so the calf has the best chance of starting its life out strong and healthy. Also, unlike humans, cows do not form an immediate bond to their offspring, so a very quick separation of the two most likely will mean that the cow will hardly notice or even care about her offspring being gone. Now, another common misconception that I commonly hear is that cows are being bred over and over and over again with no breaks and are practically being raped. Now, I spoke to Maddie Nickel, who's been specializing in dairy breeding using artificial insemination for the past 8 years, about this concept, and she told me that after giving birth, there's a 45 to 80 day waiting period before a cow can be rebred. And she explained to me that artificial insemination technicians such as herself are trained to look for and detect the heat period of a cow. And the heat period is when the cow is signaling that she is ready and willing to be bred. Also, using AI text is a lot safer and way more accurate than using live bulls, as bulls can get quite large and aggressive, causing potential injury to the cows. And using a bull makes it really difficult for farmers to keep accurate records of which cows have been bred and which ones haven't. Of course, with every industry, there are bad people who should be punished for their wrongdoings. But there are way more good people who are dedicating their lives to maintaining the health and well-being of their herds, and we need to step up and support those people. Supporting good farmers is really easy. It just takes a little bit of effort to go a long way. One way to support good-intentioned farmers is by shopping at farmers markets. This is where local families come to display, market, and sell their products, and farmers markets can be found just about anywhere. Another way one can support good-intentioned farmers is by educating themselves with factual information. Reading articles written by universities or recognized agricultural organizations is a great place to start. Reaching out and asking questions is another great idea. Dairy farmers, FFA members, or 4-H members are all valuable sources of information. And of course, the best way that you can support good farmers is by supporting the next generation of them, the local FFA or 4-H chapter. These kids are the future of agriculture, and these clubs are setting them up to become our next generation of farmers, ranchers, and growers. The solutions are simple, and many have the ability to take part in them. Now I want to explain to you who is producing our milk and why it's important to our economy. But first, I want you to imagine what it would be like if the dairy industry did get more support. It would benefit not only the people, such as you and me, but also the animals. When it comes to the animals, it actually reminds me of another misconception that I hear quite often, which is that farmers simply don't care for their livestock, which is entirely untrue. In an article titled "Livestock Misconceptions Within Food Production," it is said that farmers dedicate their lives to creating a healthy environment for their livestock. If farmers didn't care for their livestock, their profits would cease to exist, forcing them to close down an operation that has probably been passed down through the family from generation to generation. And if this was a common occurrence, it would take a huge toll on our economy. And to explain the positive effect that the dairy industry has had on the U.S. economy, Mark O'Keefe at the U.S. Dairy Export Council has written an article detailing statistics and data about these effects. According to the council, this industry has provided over 2.9 million jobs within the United States, both directly and indirectly, has generated, now bear with me, $64.4 billion in taxes, and contributes an overall 1.09% to the U.S. gross domestic product, which may seem like a very small number, but when looking at the grand scheme of things, that number is actually quite substantial. And now that you have heard these huge numbers, you're probably thinking that big name brands like Dairygold are these gigantic corporate farms that fall into the negative stereotype that have been put onto the industry. But according to O'Keefe, he is quoted as saying that 95% of American dairy farms are family-owned and operated businesses, not your Fortune 500 companies. Basically, big name dairy brands like Dairygold are actually fed by small family-owned farms. And now that you have a picture of who and what you're supporting when you buy dairy from the store, make it a reality. My goal here today is to ask you to support the dairy industry, which in turn will support families and their livelihoods. If you want to make sure that you are supporting a local family, use farmers markets to your advantage. To find one near you, simply type into any device, farmers markets near me, and you'll be able to find dates, times, and locations. Another way is to support your local FFA or 4-H clubs. You can donate directly to the clubs or buy from their fundraisers. And I do know that for FFA you can donate directly to the kids who are showing livestock as well. But the easiest way and the most cost efficient is just by showing up at the competitions. I know that the Junior Northwest Livestock Show is supposed to be having their event this year. I'm just not entirely sure on location since they may have changed it. And one more thing, if you see an article pop up on social media such as Facebook that's written by an animal rights organization, I want you just to stop and think to yourself for just a moment. How factual is this information, and where did they get their information from? If you're unsure, look it up. Reading articles written by universities such as Wazoo or UC Davis is a great place to start, or reading articles written by recognized agricultural organizations. You can also ask those 4-H or FFA kids I was just talking about. They seriously want to answer any questions you may have, so don't be afraid to ask them. Also, I know that you can look up some dairy farms on social media, like Krennic Dairy out in Enumclaw. You can message them on social media such as Facebook, and they'd be more than happy to answer any questions you may have. But the most important thing you can do is educate yourself and advocate for an industry that's not as bad as mainstream media makes it up to be. And of course, as long as you aren't lactose intolerant, drink milk. Thank you.